Thank you for tuning in to WBGR World Network.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Real Estate Talk with Lisa. So glad to have you here. I'm Lisa Jeffery, and I'm your host. I am an agent with Fairfax Realty Elite. Yes, we've had a name change. And Rodney Bennett is my broker. And we're located, I work out of the Greenbelt office. We also have a Georgetown office. And of course, there are other Fairfax Realty offices in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. If you need to reach me by phone directly, you can reach me at 301 542 5168. That's 301 542 5168. Now, we're also reachable. I'm reachable by email, lisajeffrey38 at gmail.com. And you can see us on we're on WBGR's Wellness Network now, as I'm sure you are aware if you're watching. But we're also available on our Facebook page, Real Estate Talk with Lisa, as well as our YouTube channel, Real Estate Talk with Lisa. We can catch all of the archive footage of the different shows that we've had, and you may find that one of the previous shows covered a specific issue that interested you, and so you can go back and check those out at that time. So, I got a couple of hot topics for you today. And some of them are things we talked about before. Some of them are new things. So I'm just excited to be able to share that with you. Now, if this is your first time watching, I just want you to know that the theme of our show is opening the door with keys of independence. And what that means is, when you have independence, that's a product of independent thought. And to have good clarity in your thought, you need information. So what we strive to do is to educate, empower, and motivate you to action in the area of real estate. Whether you want to be a buyer, whether you want to be a seller, whether you are looking to become a landlord, or you are currently a tenant and you want some tips on how to go about the rental search. Just anything to do with that area of real estate. We also deal with housing issues, whether it's senior housing, veteran housing, different things that happen in housing that are a problem in communities. We also talk about community development. We have guests that come in and talk about different avenues of development in the county, in the state. If they're building something new, we talk about those as well, because we want you to be informed so that you can be empowered to go out and create the wealth that you want, to create the destiny that you want for your family. We've often talked about how wealth, the cornerstone of wealth, is real estate. That's one of the things, to be able to own a piece of property, to own some land, to own your home. And that's a big step for then creating wealth, because you can take that piece of property, you can leverage that to, as you build equity in it, to create finances for your family, to send your children to college. You can use it to leverage yourself into another business as an entrepreneurial effort. You can use it as your first piece to then add and add and add, kind of like like when we play Monopoly and we're looking to collect all the areas of property in all of the houses. And so what we're here to tell you is that you can win at this game, and you can move forward and achieve what you want to achieve. It may take you a little time. One of our previous guests with Fidelity Direct Mortgage, I always give him credit for this, Mr. Brett Carter, wonderful gentleman, had a sentence that he gave us, an equation, if you will, that time plus motivation equals home ownership. Because he said he felt like anybody could become a home owner, and that was pretty much the way to do it. Time plus motivation could equal home ownership. For some of us, it might be a little more time. For some of us, it might be we don't need that much time. We just need to get motivated and understanding why it's important for you to have home ownership. Okay. And what we've done as a show, we've kind of elaborated a little bit on that time piece, and we said, underneath that time is in parentheses is preparation and education. So you want to understand that that timepiece is not just that clock just ticking, just going around. No, you have to be getting prepared for home ownership. There's a lot of things you need to know. And so in getting prepared, you're getting educated, finding out what you don't know, because what you don't know can hurt you or delay your forward progress. Okay? So that's the aim of our show. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are a returning viewer, want to thank you for stopping in to see us today. And, we're going to proceed on. So now, if you've been watching for the past two shows, you know that we've been talking about fair housing. We had the several chapters of NAREB. We had the Prince George's County chapter, the DC chapter, and the Baltimore chapter representatives here in the studio with us. And we also spoke by phone to National Executive Director Antoine Thompson of the NAREB organization, who called us from the Memphis Midwinter Conference of the organization. NAREB stands for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. They were formed in Tampa, Florida, 1947, as a response for Black and African American real estate agents not being able to be part of the mainstream white organization in real estate. So they formed their own organization, although their organization was more inclusive minded even at its inception. But they, along with the NAACP, promoted and pushed for the passage of what we know as Fair Housing Act, which is the Civil Rights Act of 1968. It was passed April 11th, 1968, a week after the assassination of Dr. King, which was a catalyst. But behind the scenes for several years before that, both the NAACP, NAREB, and other organizations have been pushing to get that legislation passed. So we delved into the history, we delved into the disparities that still exist between the actual act and the implementation of the act, and what still needs to take place. Our last show, we had Tara Fergus Houston. She is the 2018 president-elect of the Women's Council of Realtors, the Northern Virginia metro area. She is an associate broker at eXp Realty. And she is also the GCAR, the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors. She is one of the fair housing instructors. So for realtors like myself, we are trained to understand what the fair housing laws are and how to implement those in our business. So even inadvertently, we do not cross the line and violate anyone's rights. And she was our call-in guest last week. And from the, GCAR is part of the larger organization, NAR, National Association of Realtors. When you become a member of the GCAR Association, you're also a part of NAR, as well as the Maryland Realtors group. So speaking from that perspective, where the two organizations' paths have diverged, they are now both committed to fair housing. There's not segregation in either organization. And so she shared with us just some insights about fair housing. So April's Fair Housing Month, we're going to close up with just a few words about that. She mentioned on the last show, Ms. Houston did, the Maryland Realtors magazine. And this is what the cover looks like. You wouldn't get one, of course, if you are not a realtor, but some of the articles that are in there are available online. And in their publication, they have what is known as the protected classes. And those are the categories that are protected by the Fair Housing Act. So when you look at those, you have color. These are the national, these are every state. This is the national protected classes. They're covered in every state. Okay. Color, which is a person's color. Familial status, which is families in which one or more children under 18 live with the parent. the person that is renting or purchasing that property. You can't be discriminated because of that. National origin, that refers to where you were born, what country you were originally born in. You cannot be discriminated based on that. Physical or mental disability. Uh, it could be a visual impairment, it could be a mental condition, um, any type of disability. Okay. Race, characteristics of physical characteristics or genetic groupings of human populations. Because there is only one race, the human race, right? But in this particular application, that's what it's ascribing to. Religion, you can't be discriminated on based on your religion. Okay. Sex, whether you're male or female, that should not play a role in whether or not your contract is accepted for purchase or your rental application is accepted. Now, there in Maryland, because this is the Maryland Realtors publication, and in other states there may be other counties that have added to. No counties can take away from the national protected classes, but there are some additions that are sometimes made. So in Maryland, it includes all the federal protections listed above, plus marital status, whether you're single, married, divorced, or widowed, sexual orientation, okay, or gender identity. So none of those are three additional classes that are throughout the state of Maryland. Okay. Now, local counties also have instituted additional protected classes that extend to their counties, and that was something that Ms. Houston referred to in terms of knowing the county that you're operating in, that your client is in, and so being sensitive to that, and that comes from the realtor standpoint, having the education, making sure that you're paying attention, because we do continuing education every 2 years. So, and we're required to take fair housing. So, just to make sure that you took your notes, that you paid attention, and that you're always cognizant of where you're operating and what laws apply there. So, some of the other categories in Maryland, age. So if you're older or you're younger, and let's just say a over 55 community that's specifically constructed for that, you can't be discriminated because of age, your ancestry, like who your parents were, your creed, which is your personal beliefs or your principles, ethnic ethnic origin, so that's your cultural upbringing, okay, family responsibility. So if you have caregiving types of responsibilities that take place in your home, that's not something that you could be discriminated against. Lawful income, which is also related to source of income. So any lawful source of income, cannot be cause you to be discriminated against. So if you're an older person and your income is Social Security and a pension, or perhaps your only income as a woman, maybe it's alimony, and maybe you also have an income. Those things can't disqualify you. Your personal appearance, believe it or not, that's one. So sometimes maybe you have tattoos or whatever. That's not something that in certain counties that can be something that you would be able to discriminate against. They specifically have outlined that. Occupation, public opinion, and then presence of children, where maybe you're caregiving for children but it's temporary, but if they're there, that still can't be a reason for discrimination. So I'm sure most of you didn't realize that there were as many variations or additions to the Fair Housing Act based on county. But it's good to know, and there is a link that we will make available to you on our Facebook page for the show, where you can go and look and see all the laws by county. Okay? Now, How do you recognize housing discrimination? And this is also in our publication for this month. Someone refuses to rent to you or sell you housing when they've publicized that it's available, or they tell you it's unavailable when it is in fact available. Only show if your agent or person you're working with is only showing you homes or properties in certain neighborhoods. If you if they say a certain preference in terms of preferred groups of people that they will rent to or sell to. So these are some of the red flags to be aware of, so that you as the individual can protect yourself. Okay? Now, I want to show you a brief video. We're going to talk about, well, I wanted to show it to you. We weren't able to get it. That was some of our delay. I was trying to get the video up, but I wanted to show it to you, but I'll post it on our page. And it's from 1441, the magazine. And they are tackling the issue of returning citizens. And the organization is headed up by Andre Gore. We're going to have him in the studio this upcoming month, in the month of May, to talk about the organization. But what they're focused on is a holistic approach to returning citizens. Now, the number 1441, which is the name of the organization, and also the magazine, is significant in that Mr. Gore went into the prison system, if you will, at age 14. He was actually put in a detention center at age 14 for truancy. Not even for stealing or anything like that, just for truancy. And from age 14 to age 41, he was in and out of the prison system. And I know him personally, and I've watched some of his interviews, and he's just talked about going in at such a young age and the levels of crime that he learned to do while he was in jail that kind of led him to continue that lifestyle until he was age 41. He was finally released for good. And he is motivated, working with that particular population, and not just them, but that is his heartbeat. And so we're going to have him on because the reason why that's a hot topic, in certain states you have greater releases of the prison population coming out. And we call those our returning citizens because they've done their time, they've done their debt to society, but often the environment when they come out is not conducive for them to be able to survive. I mean, you've been incarcerated for a certain period of time, so there's certain things that you need when you come out in order for you to then become a productive returning citizen to the community. And we often fail that population group because we don't have the processes in place to take care of them, whether it's medical attention, it's job skills training. Several organizations have made efforts and have good programs in place to provide jobs training, skills, that type of thing. But that needs to be on the forefront of our mind when we're talking about housing issues and we're talking about community development, because this can be your brother, your sister, your uncle. These are family members, sometimes returning where family has moved on, or where family has been waiting for them to come back but may not have the capacity to receive them into the current living situation. They may need additional counseling, because if you've been incarcerated for a while, when you come out, there's a lot of new things that are going on. How many times have you changed phones just in the past 5 years? And what things can your phone do now that it couldn't do 10 years ago? And that's just your phone. There's so many things that have changed. I mean, we're in D.C. just the other day, and just talking about the new buildings that we saw that, if you blink your eye, first there's a hole in the ground for the parking garage, and you turn around again, it's a whole building. So you can imagine what it's like for someone that's been incarcerated for a certain period of time to come out and get reacclimated. So that's a topic that we're going to be involving in more. And I'd like to hear some feedback from you on our comments on the Facebook page, or you can email me directly and let me know what you think about the types of solutions that we need. Are you active in a prison ministry in your church? Are you connected with another organization within Maryland, D.C., or Virginia that is making inroads there? How are you involved there? Is it a family member that you've seen go through some challenges? What would you like to see happen in that area? And I look forward to your comments, because when we air that show, I'm going to pull from those some of the questions that Mr. Gore and the other guests that will be here with him to discuss for you. Now, on that note, they are having a Spread the Love event. Let me see if I can get all the details of it for you. It's coming up this Saturday, and I'm helping support them, and getting the word out. But it's going to be a feeding the homeless program, not just formerly incarcerated, but homeless, any homeless person. And it's going to be this Saturday, and let me get the time for you. And I'm looking at all of the things that we have going on in our country, and it's so disruptive. But we have to keep our focus on community, keeping our communities safe, supporting those that are in our community, and encouraging, looking at those that are marginalized, and seeing how we can create the proper environments for life, not abundant life, to help create environments for people to thrive. And I think that whatever you can do, if it's volunteering at the soup kitchen in your community, if it's going out with the homeless outreach at your church, if you can't go, then support, donate, but find a way to make a difference. Sometimes it's just you may be helping someone that's elderly in your community, giving them a ride to the store, or making sure that they have groceries, but keeping that community connection, because sometimes we get isolated from people in our community and they fall through the cracks, and we think about it after we say, oh, I should have, I could have. We should just do. When we think about it, we should just go ahead and take that step and not wait for someone else to take it for us. Okay? All right. So, let me pull up the information. You guys, I don't normally have my laptop on here, so I'm trying to work it all to the good, right? All right, so the instructions or the directions for the event this Saturday is Spread the Love Homeless and Hungry Community Event. It's Saturday, April 28th. It's at Martin Luther King Jr. Highway and Eastern Avenue, right at the corner there in Seat Pleasant, Maryland. It's 20743 is the zip code. It's 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So they'll be feeding, they'll be handing out care packages with needful things. If you're homeless, you may be staying at a shelter, you may not have funds, you may not have access to certain materials, so they will be making sure to hand those things out. I'll be posting a number for you to reach out to if you'd like to make a donation to the event. All right? Now, last week I had mentioned an event called Think Realty. And I showed you my magazine that I got from Think Realty. Think Realty was an event, excuse me, that I went to on April, I want to say it's April 9th in Baltimore. And the event, it was something that I had not been to, but Sherman Ragland, who's been here with us before, DC Real Estate Investors, he's the dean there and head of their brokerage. He was a speaker at Think Realty out on the West Coast, and he had announced that it was going to be coming to Baltimore. So I was excited. I was like, well, what's all this about? And they have 3 words for their logo. It's time, purpose, and wealth. I was like, I need to go check this out and find out what it's all about. So I went, I'm sorry, I said the 9th. It was on the 14th and 15th. Apologize for that. Mr. Eddie Wilson, who is the CEO of Affinity Worldwide, is also the president of Think Realty. And their logo says a real estate of mind. And what they brought together was just amazing. If you're interested in any type of real estate investing, buying a property and holding it as a rental property, playing the long game, looking to get the property paid off by tenants and, keep that property in your family and have that passive income. If you're more interested in buying a property and flipping it, if you're looking to wholesale a property, maybe you find a property that someone wants to sell and then you go out and find a buyer, you're kind of that middleman person. If any of those interest you, it was all there. And what I liked was they had national speakers that came in. They have their own team of coaches. And so they came in and they presented. But what they also did was they gave place to the local investors. And as I'm learning more about the investing side of the business of the real estate business from my guests and from my own, going out and seeing and doing, it's been really, really interesting. When Reba was here as a co-host once before, we were talking about the secrets of the millionaire mind. And we just touched just a little bit on that first chapter. But later in that book, Harv Eker mentions how many times we feel that people that are successful, that are doing well, that are wealthy, hold their information close to the vest. They don't let it out. They don't want anybody to know their secrets. But he said that as he became wealthy, he found that was not the case, that people were willing to share the information, to help others become wealthy, to support each other's events, that his perception of that was in error. Prior to him being in that position, even before he really became super wealthy, just meeting people and actually sitting down and having a conversation. And I can say I found that to be true at this event. You found speakers that were heads of real estate investing groups that may be holding 200 units of rental property. And you know how sometimes you go to events and you don't, you get a lot of hype and you don't get any information, and then you have to sign up to get the real information. Now, don't get me wrong, there were other things you could sign up for, but I'm telling you, these folks brought you real information. It was such a treat to be there. Some of the topics, and there was also an expo where you could meet different vendors, people that offer funding for deals, software if you're looking to get into that environment, software to help you manage the process of what you're doing. Of course, there was coaching available. So it was just a beautiful event. Some of the topics were get more done and make more money with trained virtual assistants, ways to take your real estate investment and apply that to your IRA if you're looking to retire, rehabbing houses to build wealth, funding secrets to acquire $1 million business line of credit. I sat in on that session, and it was just really interesting. The gentleman talked about the FICO model and how you need to handle your credit if you're looking to build your business credit, the do's and the don'ts. And he was very candid. I took great notes. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that this was a great event. I'm saying that there's another one coming up in Atlanta. I'm saying that there are people in our local environment, DC, Virginia, Maryland, that are doing great things in our midst and are willing to teach. As I mentioned, closing 10 steps to closing a deal in 30 days. That was the awesome Charles Blair and Brittany Calloway. I am telling you, I thought, okay, these two folks are going to get up. They're going to, 10 steps. Yeah, okay. No, I mean, it was very detailed, very informative. Many of the presenters were willing to share the slides with you after the presentation. Just give them your email address. So I'm telling you, it was just a fabulous event. Our previous guest, Sherman Ragland, he had his book, Real Estate Investing 101. He gave away 100 copies, and they were numbered to the first 100 people that got them. So I got a copy because I wanted to be there in the place. And he signed them all. But it's a great book. Comes with a disc in the back. It says Secrets to Your First Deal in 21 Days or Less. Okay? And then the book is not a difficult read. It's Real Estate Investing 101, the 13 Fundamental Ways to Make Money as an Investor. And I mean, it just covers the topics that you need to know. Now, when you're thinking about investing, sometimes you may be up late at night watching the news, and as the news goes off, you have all the infomercials. You have all of the gurus that come on late at night, and they're not necessarily in your area. There's certain things about your area, certain things about your market, okay, that they won't know because they're not here. There's a certain bit of authority that comes from being in the market that you're teaching people. Okay? And that's what I liked about the event, is that they came in, they had a great event, but they highlighted some of our local people, and some of them I had not met before. I mentioned Charles Blair and Brittany Calloway. Of course, Sherman Ragland was there. He emceed. His organization actually gave away a ginormous TV, okay, as a door prize at the end of the event. But we had Tammy Phelps, who is known nationally for her work in multi-unit properties, whether it's 2 or 200 units, teaching you how to acquire those properties. And I went to her event last night as an offshoot of having seen her. Very personable, sit right down and talk to you, give you the information. So for those of you that are interested in investing, Baltimore is a hot market in terms of it's emerging. There's a lot going on there. There's still opportunities to get in as an investor, to make a difference in the community by buying, properties that may not be in great condition and creating good housing for people, but also from the investment standpoint of being able to make money. And so a lot of the local folks were talking about where the markets were, what's going on in the market, what the cycles are going on, because they've done their homework, but they're not just giving you that, they're also teaching you how to do your homework. So we'll post some links to the event so that you can be able to go and take advantage to some of these meetups. The networking is fantastic. I met a man in Tammy Phelps' session. He told us he has, with his partner, 4,000 rental units. 4,000. But he said it's just been a steady progress. just steady, just adding and adding and adding. But he said he couldn't do it without a great partner, and I'm sure he has a great team to support him. So, for those of you that have been thinking about doing investing and investing in real estate, it's good to find one of these groups that you click with, that's focused, because some of them have different focuses, that focuses on what you're looking for, and make that connection that will help get you to your next level. All right, so we're going to wind up in just a few moments, but our final hot topic that I wanted to know what you thought about was the HUD proposal with our Secretary of HUD, Dr. Ben Carson, with respect to raising the rent for those that are using, housing subsidies. We normally call it the housing voucher or Section 8 housing. We're looking to raise the cost of the housing, as well as implementing or giving landlords or housing authorities the right to add work stipulations to the receiving of the benefits. So, when I was looking at this, just in my circle, it was kind of not accepted. And the thought that, okay, you have here the population that is struggling to get housing, now making it more difficult for them to get housing. And one of the things that you're looking at is, okay, are you now going to put HUD in the role of creating or adding to the homeless population that we already have? Because how can you add to them when they're already, they're already at the bottom? Now, is it wrong to say, okay, we're subsidizing your housing, but if you're able-bodied, you should be working? I don't know that in and of itself is a bad concept, but the implication is that, we have all these able-bodied people and they aren't working. But I have had some of my voucher clients that are working, and they pay a portion of their rent along with the voucher that they are receiving. But I think that to just make a broad brush that this is the solution or this is the incentive is not, I think, the best way to handle the situation. Now, just to go over some of the notes with you, it's supposed to raise the rent to 35% of your gross income, or 35% of your earnings working 15 hours a week at the federal minimum wage. And the current standard is 30% of adjusted. So it says that about 4.7 million families are going to be affected. So if they aren't able to maintain that housing, what's the safety net? What's the recourse for those families? Now it says the cap on the rent for the poorest families would rise to about $150 a month, which is 3 times the current ceiling. So it says about 712,000 homes would see that increase. And I understand the fact that the current system may not be working well. I think the long waiting list was cited, and I know many people that have waited years and years on the list. You may hear that the voucher list may be opening, and there's a rush for people to get there, and then probably the next day it's closed because it's all filled up. So I do understand that, but when you say the calculations are confusing and all these other things that are being said, it's like I don't see that you're taking into account what's needed. Now it says you're going to scrap the rules that allow for deductions for health care and child care costs. Okay, so you're going to raise my rent, and the cost of child care, because I will now need to work more. Um, how am I going to account for that and account for my housing? So it just seems to me not to be a well thought out plan, but it is, a political season. So this may be, a political move. I do believe that there's probably some revamping to the system that needs to be done, but this may not be the best approach to the problem, because I think the repercussions without some type of uh, plan in place to handle that, I don't see how this is workable. I'd love to see your comments about that, what your feedback is about that. When you heard this, what did you think about it? How did you feel? Was it something that kind of raised your eyebrows with respect to this particular piece? Finally, foreclosures. Foreclosures are on the rise again in the state of Maryland. So depending on where you sit on the side of that, that's a positive or a negative. And what I mean by that is, if you are a homeowner that is looking at a foreclosure and dealing with that, that's not a good situation for you. If you are an investor looking to purchase a property and you're looking to buy foreclosed properties, that's a different equation for you. But for those of you that are from the homeowner standpoint, that may be facing a challenge right now and looking at foreclosure, um, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, the acronym is NACA, is holding an event. Their event is in Baltimore this week. They will be having an upcoming event in DC. I don't have a date for that yet, though, but they are going to come to DC. NACA started as the head of NACA, Bruce Marks, and their organization was fighting against predatory lending. So NACA has a twofold approach. One is that they provide below market rate loans that are more character driven than credit driven. Okay. And they pay a lot of the closing costs. So they offer that to homeowners. But they also have a Home Save. It used to be called Home Save. I'm not sure if it still is. But they have a portion of their program that works with you to negotiate on your behalf to get a loan modification. Now, I have met some people that have been able to navigate the NACA process and get that loan mod through. But what they do a couple of times a year is that they have open forum where you can come directly and meet with their personnel and get your paperwork addressed right away. Okay, so they are having it. It's a 4-day. It's listed as a home ownership event. But if you are looking at foreclosure, this could be an opportunity to have someone help you. That's at Baltimore at the Radisson Hotel, Baltimore downtown Inner Harbor, at 101 West Fayette Street. That's Baltimore 21201. Now it's going to be from the 26th through the 30th. Okay, so they're going to be there 4 days. So you can go there. The hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And walk-ins are welcome. So you don't have to have made an appointment. So if you're looking at foreclosure, that's an option for you. Also, if you're looking at home ownership, they do, their loans are a conventional loan product. There's no PMI, there's no mortgage insurance, and perfect credit is not required. So They do have items that you can bring with you, and you can get approved by them on the spot. Credit card statement, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns. So I'll post their flyer on the page, so that may be an option for you. Also, if you're looking at foreclosure, I have been speaking with an organization that I was introduced to this week, and I was so pleased to make their acquaintance. And they actually work in the D.C., Virginia, Maryland area, working with those that are facing foreclosure. And I will have their information together for you. But they are another resource in our community that I was not aware of. And I've been speaking with the head of that group to help spread the awareness of what they do and how they do it. Okay? So those are some of our hot topics. We closed out fair housing, touched a little bit on the returning citizens. We talked about investing. We talked about this new HUD initiative to raise the rents on some of our more vulnerable population. And I'm not saying that there aren't infractions, misuses, and abuses that happen in the system. But I think that a more thought out approach should be taken. And we touched a little bit on a foreclosure in terms of some of the resources that may be out there for you. I hope that you've heard something that's educated you, that's empowered you, that's motivated you to take some action. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, I'll see you at the show.
Thank you for tuning in to WBGR World Network.